Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire guide. This will cover the entire game, basically all tips and tricks, everything that you need to know about the game in order to play the right way. What we're gonna cover is leveling tips, companions, rules, tactics, positioning, combat, crafting, everything the game has to offer basically, so it's gonna be a long one, but I hope it's also gonna be a very useful one. I'm 8 years late with this, but the game won't receive any more patches, so we're good to go, I guess. This is the game in its best state for the current 2025. Anyways, let's not waste time and let's go. Before we start with the video, I got a new channel about my cat. It's not a gaming channel, but it's a relaxing channel with a lot of gaming music, so you can chill out while doing something else. So, if you have a daughter, mother, sister, even your mother-in-law, recommend them the channel. They're also gonna like it, as well as if you have cats. It will be something like a cat TV as well. Your cats will have fun too. Thanks up front for subscribing on the new channel. Let's go to the video. So my very first advice with the game at the start is that you should know that the game is full of memory leaks and frames can drop if you don't restart the game. So it's highly recommended that you quick save often and that you restart the game every hour or two because of the memory leaks. That's how you bring back frames up. Loading times are very fast, so you won't lose 30 seconds on restarting, and do it on every hour or two. It's mandatory. And it's very important to save for the start. Now, let's see the options and how to play the game. If you played Pillars 1, should you import your character from Pillars 1? Definitely. Should you play Pillars 1 before Pillars 2? Definitely. Can you play Pillars 2 without playing Pillars 1? No, you cannot. You won't understand a thing and what's happening. Pillars 2 is basically a continuation of Pillars 1. It's one big game, in other words. So the most important setting would be auto pause. This one over here. On combat start, you should tick it on. You want the game to auto pause on combat start. You want the game to auto pause when enemy is spotted, and for the party to stop movement when enemies are spotted. Same applies for trap. When you spot a trap, party stops. So these should be ticked on. They're gonna make your life a bit easier and less tedious. Also, I could advise for you to pause the game, hidden object found option, so when you find the secret, the game will pause so you can check where the secret is. Now, this should be the base settings for the auto pause. As far as graphics go, no matter what you pick, you're still gonna need to restart the game because of the memory leaks. Now, also make sure to have all the DLCs installed for the game, so that would be a base game, Deadfire, then all the free DLCs that you see over here, as well as the big DLCs like Beast of Winter, Seeker Slayer Survivor, and the Forgotten Sanctum. These are all great DLCs, these three, and they offer a lot of content, and they make the game, well, way much better. Once you start a new game, there's gonna be an option to select a game mod, whether you wanna play turn-based mod or real-time. Pillars was made as a game to be played in real time with pauses. I really do not recommend turn-based because it's very slow, sluggish, it's gonna take way much more time, and you should get used already if you played Pillars 1 to now play Pillars 2 as well in a real-time mod. Yeah, because Pillars 1 is only real-time. So choose the real-time option and continue. Now, the difficulty. What should you play on? With the builds that I gave on my channel, main watcher builds, companion builds, all of the guides that I produce on Pillars 1 and 2, you can easily play on a veteran. I made the builds to work on Path of the Damned difficulty with upscaling all. Okay, that's the hardest difficulty in the game basically, yeah. And I created all of my guides for this. You will not have any problems. The game is at its hardest in a tutorial area basically on Path of the Damned, and on a mega late game on optional mega bosses. So if you can pass the game on Path of the Damned in the first 10-15 hours, then you're gonna have cakewalk until the very end, if you followed my guys. But I do recommend for everyone to play on veteran and nothing below veteran on all the builds that I gave. You're gonna have an easy time on veteran. So have in mind that you can easily play like this. Now, what are the benefits of playing on veteran and on Path of the Damned? Bigger number of enemies. Same like in Pillars 1. It changes the entire game. It's more fun. Instead of fighting 3 monsters, you're gonna fight 7. It makes the game more fun. There's more enemies, more surprises. Basically, it's a different game. So have that in mind when you're picking difficulty. Now, what do we do with Berad's blessings? Berad's blessings are blessings to make the game easier. They basically ruin the game. These are cheats, in-game cheats. Do I recommend using Berad's blessings? No, not a single one. You want to play this game fair and square? You want to play without Berad's blessings. Again, this is a cheat code installed into a game. I don't even know what's the reason for them to install the cheat code into the game with Berad's blessings, but that's how it is. So, do not use Berad's blessings. That's the bottom line if you want to play fair and square. Character creation. What's important to know about character creation? On top of all the builds that I gave and so on, there's gonna be now the case whether we're gonna play as a single class or a multi-class. Picking a single class means that you will be able to reach the highest tier of specific class or a subclass, or better to say tier 8 and tier 9, where the most powerful spells are and the most powerful passives are. Okay, no matter what class you pick. That's the single class. When you pick a multi-class, you're gonna have double options basically, okay, like this, but what's gonna happen? It's going to happen that once you pick the second class and you preview the ability tree, now you're gonna multi-class between different classes, or better to say subclasses. You can only go to tier 7 and you're gonna miss out on all of this, but you're gonna have more useful passives. So what are the classes that are great for multi-classing, and what are the classes that are great as a single class? The best single class in the game would be Druid, Priest, and a Wizard, because their high level spells are just epic. Now, does it mean that multi-classing Wizard with a fighter, for example, is bad? No, that would be then a self-buffer Wizard that's becoming a battle mage in combination with a fighter, with all of the fighters' passives like reduce armor recovery rate, soak up more damage, engage more enemies, and so on. That's also very powerful, but what are you missing? You're missing out on a fun, okay? Because most fun, for example, is when you pick a druid and then you whack the maelstrom. You can't do it if you multi-class. You can, in theory, with scrolls, but you won't have spells in your spell slots, okay? And that's the main thing. So what are the best classes to multi-class with? Those are the classes like Paladin that have auras, okay? Or Chanter that has auras, or Fighter that merges absolutely great with everything. Those are the great multi-classing options. Or for example, mixing up Ranger with a Rogue to become a main DPS in a game. There's plenty of combinations. What's the most important thing to say? Everything works, every single build is valid, and you can make every single build work no matter if it's single class or a multi-class. For the beginners, I highly recommend going with single classes, as well as on companions as on a main watcher. If you like the game that much, once you start the second run, then you can go with multi-classing. Again, if you have problems to create builds, I got all of the builds on my channel updated for the main watcher and for companions, so you won't have any problems with leveling. And after all, you're gonna learn how the game works, yeah? Now, the first things first, in this game you got something that's called companions, and you got something that's called the sidekicks. Main companions in a game are Seraphen, Pallegina, Eder, Alot, Choti, Tekehu, and Maya. All of these here are sidekicks. What's the difference? Main companions interact in conversations more often, they got their own personal quests. Sidekicks do not interfere in conversations that often, and they do not have their own personal quests. So basically, they're just mercs implemented in a game. You could easily ignore them, although the only good sidekick would be Vatnir, and that's from the DLC, of course, and Facina. The rest of them you can easily ignore. So, bottom line is, just stick with companions, main companions in the game. There's 7 in total. Let's cover all the stats and everything that you need to know about the game. So, in order, there is something that's called health. When it drops to 0, you're dead. In comparison to Pillars 1, when there was health and endurance, now it's removed. So, a lot of people will say how Pillars 2 is better, or better to say, it's more complex than Pillars 1, but I would heavily disagree. Pillars 2 is easier. It just has bigger build variety because of the multi-classing. But as far as the rule sets go, combat and tactics, Pillars 1 is a more complex game. Especially when you check the stats like this, you had to pay attention on 1 million things in Pillars 1. This is more user-friendly in Pillars 2. So again, only leveling is upgraded from Pillars 1. Everything else is downgraded from Pillars 1. Why? The reason was very simple. They wanted to make the game a bit easier so more people can play Pillars 2. So, health. The next thing would be damage. Damage can be blunt, pierce, and slash. Some enemies are invulnerable to specific type of damage, and you're gonna need to switch weapons when you play. For example, maces and clubs are blunt, swords are slash and pierce, pikes are only pierce, and so on. You gotta pay attention on enemies. If you don't deal damage, then switch the weapon type and start dealing damage. Okay, so that would be the damage part. Accuracy is the most important thing in the game. The bigger the accuracy, the higher the roll, the bigger the chance that you're gonna hit. It doesn't matter if you use basic attack or spells. Accuracy counts for every single attack in a game. Accuracy is by far the most important stat. If you play on harder difficulties, also one of the important stats that you gotta pay attention to is penetration. How fast you can penetrate through enemies' armor. Okay, and it's very important to say that there is a full penetration, classic penetration, and under penetration that comes with damage penalties. The higher this number is, in other words, the better. As far as defenses go, there is a classic deflection when someone whacks you with a basic attack, whether it's ranged or melee. There is fortitude, there is reflex, and there is will. All of these defenses are extremely important. The most annoying in the game by far is will, because if you get dominated or charmed, you're pretty much fucked up. So you wanna have will high on every character. Melees should have higher fortitude, while ranged characters should have higher reflex. And that's about it. Also, melees gotta pay attention on classic deflection, because they're gonna soak up damage and tank, as well as on bigger health pool. Squishes, like for example, Alot, he's a wizard, he doesn't need deflection because no one's gonna hit him, he's gonna be behind your tanks. He doesn't need fortitude in that case because no one will hit him, okay? He's gonna need strong will and strong reflex only, and that's about it. Same applies for armor rating. You can play squishes literally with 0 armor rating, like Alot, Seraphim, they did not need armor rating, but armor rating is extremely important on tanks or bruisers. For example, on a dare, you gotta have high armor rating. Now, armor rating also consists out of flare-up burn armor, freeze armor, electricity armor, slash, blunt armor, pierce armor, and so on. So all of those damage types that apply for a weapon, they also apply for armor as well. There's 3 types of armor in the game. There's heavy armor, medium armor, and light armor. The heavier the armor is, the slower you are, or better to say, the recovery time is bigger. The lighter the armor is, the less the recovery time. Squishes should always have lesser recovery time on armor, while tanks can easily go with full recovery time, because they're gonna soak up damage. And those would be the rules. Attributes. Might. Might is the flat damage percentage on damage dealers, as well as higher healing on all characters, classes that can heal, like druids or priests, as well as self-healing classes. Also, might gives something that's called fortitude. Yeah, so might and constitution give fortitude, dexterity and perception give reflex, while intellect and resolve give will. The 4 main defenses in the game. Constitution is only important on bruisers and off tanks, and on no one else. No one else needs constitution in this game. All other classes, squishes, ranged, casters, and so on, they don't need a constitution. You can always dump constitution on 5, 6, 8 and use those points somewhere else when you create a character. Dexterity is very important on basically all characters. The reason is very simple, it's action speed. The bigger the action speed, the faster you're gonna attack, the faster you're gonna cast spells. Casters, for example, like Alot, benefit a lot from the high dexterity, so he casts spells faster, as well as priest and so on. As far as perception goes, everyone needs perception except supports. So, for example, if you play a druid as a full support, buffer, okay, and healer, you don't need perception. There is no one to hit. But all other classes require perception. Doesn't matter if it's a caster, wizard, melee, ranged, you need high perception. The higher the difficulty, the more perception you're gonna need in this game. So perception is by far, I would say, the most important attribute in a game on nearly all classes, except healers. Intellect is the area of effect, or should I say of how big the area is for the spell, okay? So you gotta have in mind when you play this game that there is the so-called area of effect. There are passive effects and active effects. Active is when you cast a spell like this, while passive is, for example, the chanter that chants around him, and that's also area of effect. So all spells have area of effect. The bigger the intellect, the bigger the area of effect is. Classes that benefit a lot out of area of effect are priests, ciphers, druids, wizards, and some chanters. Also, not only that it has huge area of effect with a huge intellect, there is also a benefit for ability duration. Now, ability duration is when you buff. So, for example, if I use Shoti here and I buff up, I don't know, with, for example, Prayer of the Body, it says it lasts for 126 seconds. Yeah. So, the bigger the intellect is, the longer the time for the buff. The lower the intellect is, the less time for the buff is gonna expire sooner. So intellect is extremely important on casters because of area of effect and because of the time of certain abilities in a game. At the end, there is resolve with hostile effect duration, deflection, and will. Resolve is only important on tanks, fighters, paladins, or any bruisers in the game. So resolve is specific, for example, for a dare or for the chanter. If you play a melee chanter, like the build I gave for a melee chanter, then you need higher resolve, and those would be the attributes and what you gain out of the attributes. Every character needs all attributes buffed. Everyone profits out of every attribute basically, but the most important one is perception. What about skills? Active skills and passive skills. Active skills are those that you can interact with in a game. If you go with high alchemy, then your potions will last longer. If you go with high arcana, then you're gonna be able to cast more powerful spells from scrolls. If you go with athletics, you're gonna recover more with a second wind. Those are good for bruisers. If you go with explosives, you can throw bombs on enemies. If you go with mechanics, which is by far the most important active skill in the game, you're gonna be able to disarm traps in the game and then loot. There's trap doors, trap floor, and so on. Those traps deal a lot of damage. Not only that you disarm the traps and unlock chests and so on, and you steal with mechanics, also it's extremely important that you gain XP when you do it. So mechanics are extremely important and probably the most important active skill in the game. Then there is the sleight of hand, if you wanna steal from NPCs while sneaking, but stealth and sleight of hand go together well. What do we do? What are the most important active skills? Number 1 is mechanics, number 2 is arcana, number 3 is athletics, number 4 is alchemy, then it's explosives, and then the lowest tier would be sleight of hand and stealth. You gotta have these, okay, starting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You gotta have this 5 spread on all party members in a team and you're basically good to go. So Alot with Arcana, Choti with Alchemy, Adair with Mechanics. The most important thing is that you cover all of the active skills with the team setup. What about passive skills? Passive skills, you use them during conversations, during world interactions, and so on. The most important one early game is Streetwise, because you're gonna spend a lot of time in Neketaka. After that, it's religion, when you find altars and so on. And then I would say it's everything else. So basically, the most important would be, as I said, Streetwise, into religion, into diplomacy, into survival, and then it's other passive skills in order. It doesn't matter what you pick by then. One thing is sure, active skills are way much more important than passive skills in Pillars of Eternity 2. That's how the game is. Let's speak about crafting. Is it important? Very important. You can craft a lot of different drugs, explosives, food when you rest for some extra benefits, extra effects when you rest up, extra perma buffs, or better to say, you can craft some crazy good scrolls and so on. Some scrolls you can even use before you reach some tier, okay, earlier in the game, and you can easily win fights with scrolls, potions, poisons, food. You should check what does what you actually need for the team setup, and you should always use crafting, because crafting makes the game drastically easier. Okay, once you craft an item, all you need to do is take, for example, I don't know, a potion of ascension, put it in a quick slot, and then during the combat you're gonna be able to drink all of these perma buffs. So in other words, use the crafting. Do not forget about the crafting. Summons are extremely important in the early game. So feel free to use those summons, even though they have limited usages, like 5, 8 usages and so on. Use them all until level 10, 12, because later on you're gonna get stronger and you won't need summons. Summons are there to carry you in the start of the game. So feel free to use those summons non-stop. There's a lot of these figurines with summons. There's like, I don't know, 20 in the game or so. You can buy them, find them, and so on. Just use them, do not conserve them. It's stupid to conserve these things. Have fun, spam them. Once you're above level 10, you won't need them anymore. Pay attention on reputation. This is a game where your companions have a mind of their own. So for example, if you pick pirates to side with, you're gonna lose Pallegina. I think I made myself clear. Your choices do matter in this game and how your companions see you, as well as all other factions. For example, if you're good with Valiant Trading Company, you're gonna get more quests out of them, hence you're gonna get more gold out of them, hence you're gonna get more XP out of them. But then the Royal Deadfire Company won't like you. Or if you're good with the Royal Deadfire Company, they're gonna open up their shops so you can buy some extremely powerful gear. But then you won't be able to interact with Valiants. So the game, in other words, requires at least 2 or 3 runs if you want to see everything there is. So pay attention what you're doing with the factions, because there's a lot of factions in the game. You do not have castle like in Pillars 1, so your main hub is not the castle anymore, it's the ship. Your ship is your main hub. The faster you transfer from the classic boat into a full galleon, or better to say, I think this is junk, it doesn't matter, I think it's junk, the faster you'll be able to do everything on a map. Because why? There's a lot of ship combat that we're gonna cover later on. Now, how do we do it and in what order? We want to reach from the tutorial area in Port Mage. This is where you start. So from Port Mage, we want to reach Neketaka as fast as possible. Why? We want ship. How do you get a ship? By acquiring 100,000 coppers. How do you acquire coppers? By doing quests. So once you're done with Port Mage, you do not buy any items. You're gonna go straight to the Neketaka, finish all quests in the city, even if it takes 3 days. And you're gonna acquire 100,000 gold. And with that gold, you're gonna buy a ship. You're gonna buy a ship in Queensburg, right at this position over here. You're gonna buy a ship called a junk. The trader name is Zamar. So once you buy a ship and once you buy sails and everything, you wanna click on this icon over here, ship management, and you wanna put all of those cannons and everything on your ship, and you wanna recruit all of the ship crew to have the full ship crew on a ship. Yeah. So once your ship looks like this, with all cannons, with cannoneers, with cook, with navigator, with a boatswain, with deckhands, with what is this, with a helmsman, then you can start doing ship combat. Do not do ship combat on a classic Defiant, okay, the base ship that you get at the start of the game. Once you get this one, then you can start doing it, and it's gonna be drastically easier. You're gonna get rich, dirty rich, mega fast. So all you need to do for this ship is around 100,000 copper. All of that is in Neketaka when you finish all the quests in Neketaka, the main city of Pillars of Eternity 2, capital of Deadfire. Now, some of the ship crew members, you can find them along the way, and some of them, I mean most of them, you'll be able to recruit in classic shops, okay? So pay attention what you need, where the empty places. When you need a deckhand, buy a deckhand, they don't cost a lot. I believe that you should have your ship completely ready by the time you reach level 10, then it's time to do the ship combat. How do we do ship combat? There are two options for ship combat once you click on an enemy ship or on any ship. You can board them immediately, which leads to the straight up classic CRPG combat with real time with pauses, or you can go with naval combat, which one I do recommend here. If you have a strong ship, it's always better to do naval combat. Yeah. Now, how do we do naval combat? Very simple. Pay attention of how to win every single fight in the game. Once you have the ship ready with all the cannons and so on, first you check the distance. Yeah. You turn to port and you prepare to fire. Yeah. Then you wanna do hold position so you can actually aim better. And then you wanna target the ship. Now, should you target the ship with a cannonball, chain shot, or grape shot? It's good to open up with a grape shot. The reason is very simple. You're gonna destroy the crew, and then you transfer to the cannonball to sink the ship. That's how you should play. So, what is the golden combo? You want to be on like, I don't know, 400, 500 meters away from the ship. Then you turn to port. Then you hold position. Then you fire. Then you go half sail again, into hold, and you fire. Half sail, hold, fire. And that's the full combo. You're gonna win every single fight. So again, 4,500 meters, turn to port or to starboard, it doesn't matter. Hold, shoot. Half sail, hold, shoot. And repeat until you sink enemies. Why is it better to do it like this than the real time? It's shorter, that's why. And the game can awfully lag when you go into real-time combat on a ship, because that's how it's optimized. So I personally prefer to play with a classic ship combat like this. Not to mention how dirty rich you're gonna get along the way. Again, if you're not into this, you're not wrong to board the ship and have a classic combat. The perfect team composition. Team comp. You can play absolutely any class in a game. Okay, but what you should avoid is basically to duplicate. So don't play as a wizard, because you're gonna have Alot as a wizard. Do not play as priest, because you're gonna have Choti as a priest. Do not play as a druid, because you're gonna have Tekehu as a druid. Do not play as a cipher, because you're gonna have Seraphim as a Cypher. Do not play as a fighter, because you're gonna have it there. Do not play as a ranger, because you're gonna have Maya. Do not play as a paladin, because you're gonna have Pallegina, which also gives you an option to multi-class. So for example, I played a chanter, multi-classed with a fighter. Yeah, you can play a fighter, multi-class with a rogue like Darius. You can play as a battle mage, wizard, fighter combo. Or you can play with a class that doesn't exist in a game, you can play as a monk. That's how you're gonna cover all the classes that exist in a game. Just don't duplicate with the main companions. What is the perfect team comp? You need Choti, cause priests are just hilariously good in both Pillars 1 and Pillars 2. Now, what is the substitution for a priest? It's a druid, but druid can be played like priest in two different ways. Either it's healer buffer, both priest and druid, or it's damage dealing druid or damage dealing priest. Choti is extremely good as a crowd control buffer and healer. Yeah, so how can you merge Choti with Tekehu? By making Tekehu, like I gave him on my belts, into flat damage dealing caster, druid. So Choti is by far the most important companion in the game. Great one to have during the entire campaign would be Adair from start to finish, because you need someone to soak up the damage, tank up and so on. He's only kinda useless against mega bosses, but Adair is completely valid on all difficulties during the entire campaign. Alot, as a wizard, is by far the main damage dealer in the game. No one deals more damage than Alot in the entire campaign as far companions go. Alot is certainly the best option. Maya is tedious, boring, right-click companion. Same can be said about Pallegina, but at least Paladin offers auras that entire team benefits with, while Maya doesn't have any auras and so on. She is quite useless, so you can opt in for all of this. Now what about Seraphim? Seraphim is kinda great at the start of the game when you can charm and dominate enemies, so he can carry you off until level 7 or 8. And then you won't need him from level 8 to level 20. And on level 20, Seraphim becomes extremely useful again as a Cypher against mega bosses. Okay, so Seraphim is great for the start of the game and for the mega late game. You don't need Seraphim in the mid game. During the entire campaign, basically, you can play with a party like this and you're gonna cover everything. If you're more into melee builds, okay, more into melee companions, then you're just gonna opt in like this for Pallegina and you're good to go. So basically this is how your party should look like base. Choti, Alot, Adair, and then it's Tekehu or Pallegina. If you dislike Adair, and if your main character, main watcher, is a tank and he can cover everything that Adair does, then you don't need Adair and you can play like this. So you got a main tank, instead of Adair it's your main watcher, and then you have Pallegina as a bruiser, Tekehu as a something between priest and a wizard, classic priest and a classic wizard. This would be like the perfect team comp when you have a tank. If you play as, I don't know, something else, if you play as a bruiser, then you do it like this with Adair. Okay, if your main is a bruiser, then you need a tank in Adair. Can you play without a tank? Yeah, but you really need to know what you're doing. You really need to know the game well, and I would not recommend, at least for those that plan to play for the very first time. So that would be the team comp. What about party formation? Here, down on left, formations, right click on it. Tanks should be up front. Priest, or better to say Choti, main buffer and healer, goes in the middle, casters go behind, and that's about it. What about the tactics? How do we fight? This is a bit of different game from Pillars of Eternity 1, yeah? Everything that I said about combat tactics in Pillars 1, you can kinda apply on Pillars 2 as well. So for example, with a tank, you put them all into sneaking mode, and if enemies are in this room, you stand on a choke point, on doors and so on, and you hold the line. And all you need to do now is pick Adair only. Why? This is extremely important. He soaks up damage. So if enemies are in this room and you do it like this, then they're gonna spot Adair. Okay, you're out of cover. and they all rush for it there. The rest of the companions are still under stealth. Combat started and you can cast self buffs and so on while there, or your main if he's a tank, soak up all the damage on a choke point. You can buy like 20 seconds on every single fight like this to buff up with plethora of different spells and abilities, and then you just trigger stealth with everyone and you enter the combat. That's one way how to open up. The other way is when they're all under stealth, for example, and enemies are in this room, you get like 2 tanks like this, you switch off AI on both of them, you make it inactive so they stand still and don't move, you put them into stealth, okay, and you trigger, for example, with a lot where you're gonna put something like, I don't know, like missile salvo, yeah, and you're gonna catch missile salvo in enemies. Now they're all gonna rush for a lot, yeah, but they still don't see the tanks on a choke point. You just, after you cast the spell, you move with Alot. They're gonna try to reach Alot. They won't be able to. Why? They're gonna hit the invisible tanks here. They're gonna become visible. Then you trigger the AI auto attack. And now they're completely confused. They're gonna need time to switch on them. Then you come back with Alot and continue whacking enemies. That's also second way of how you can trigger fights. It depends out of the fight, it depends out of the location. Some fights are in the middle of the open, sometimes it's an ambush, sometimes you can trigger up those fights first. You should learn one thing of how to use choke points, how to use environment in your benefit, and you want to position well. Everything in this game is about positioning. So for more info, if you really want to see how to fight, how to position and so on, you got everything on my YouTube channel under the live tab, as well as a lot of separate videos of how you should position, how you should fight, what you should use, and what is the entire thought process behind every single fight in the game. Again, I gotta say it, there's a lot of combat in the game and a lot of different fights and how you can access those fights. It's very important for me to say it again. You gotta play Pillars 1 first, and then play Pillars 2. I gave a 1 hour long guide in Pillars 1 that it's way much more detailed than Pillars 2. I'm just talking about what changed in the game and how you should do it now. But all of those tricks that I gave for Pillars 1 are completely valid on Pillars 2 as well. So have that in mind. You can learn a lot from my first guide in Pillars 1 and then watch this one. All 7 companions and their locations. You're gonna get it there from the get-go in Port Mage and Choti, and after you're done with tutorial area, you're gonna receive Alot. Once you get on a boat, you're gonna receive Seraphin. So 4 companions are basically in this starting area. The game gonna give them immediately to you. Where are the rest of the companions, or should I say Pallegina, Maya, and Tekehu? They're all in Neketaka. And that's why I say the order of things of how you should do stuff. What you should do, basically. Very simple. Go from Port Mage after you're done with tutorial, okay? You can go straight in Neketaka, finish everything there is over there, what you can. Once you're done, you want to finish Dunnage, you want to finish Fort Deadlight, you want to get a soulbound weapon here, and once you're done with Port Mage, Neketaka, Oathbinder Sanctum, Dunnage, and Fort Deadlight, then you can start exploring the southwest part of the map until everything is done. Once you're done with this quarter of the map, then you're gonna transfer to this quarter over here, and you're gonna finish everything there is. Then you're gonna transfer to Sayuka, then you're gonna transfer to Vampire Crypt, and everything that goes with the northwest part of the map. And for the last, you're gonna get the southeast part of the map, where the DLC is. One of the DLCs is the Harbinger's Watch here, the other one is the Crucible, and the third one is the Hall of the Unseen. Okay, that's where you trigger the DLCs. These two you can access immediately, Harbinger's Watch, and once you receive invitation, the Crucible. Yeah, but how do you get to the Hall of the Unseen? Once you're done with the Migrants part, the main part in the campaign, you're gonna hear an earthquake, And once you hear an earthquake, you can't miss it basically, okay? Once you meet with a huge statue. I don't want to spoil way too much, so once you go into this part and there is an earthquake, then the DLC opened up for the Halls of the Unseen. But the most important order at the start is Port Mage, everything there is over here, Neketaka, everything there is, Oathbinder, Dunnage, Fort Deadlight, and then you finish the entire south part, then you can transfer to all of these, and then you leave this for the end. So we can divide the game into quarters, 4 quarters, and there, of course, there is the very hard part in a game, the all of this north, okay? This is extremely hard. So, what about the mega late game and the mega bosses? Mega bosses are completely optional. You don't need to do them, but if you want to do them, one of them is straight over here. One of them is over here. One of them is over here. And the last one is over here. So, those would be mega bosses locations. I can't give advice for mega bosses. You gotta watch my videos for mega bosses, because it takes a lot of preparation for those. They're not a joke, especially not on the hardest difficulty available. Is there a correct order of doing stuff on a map? Truth to be told, yeah, but it's not required. You can pretty much go wherever you please and create your own road. You don't need to listen to me for this. I just gave the best option of how to do stuff. You can roam around. You can go, for example, after you're done with tutorial area, you can explore all of these mini islands around, and you can finish Fort Deadlight, then you can finish Dunnage, and then you can go to Neketaka. But why do I keep saying Port Mage straight to Neketaka? So you get all the companions in a game. You'll have more options, more conversations, more things to do, okay? And Neketaka is absolutely amazing, as well as the main hub in the game, the main city in the game. There's a lot of quests here, a lot of coin, a lot of XP, and that's why I'm recommending it, because once you're done, you get the ship. Once you get the ship, everything gets drastically easier on the map. Also, in Neketaka, you're gonna collect bounties. And there's a lot of bounties for ship combat, where you receive a lot of coin and a lot of XP and a lot of great gear. So basically, the entire game should start off from Neketaka early on. If you roam around, then you're gonna need to go eventually to Neketaka, and then you're gonna need to backtrack. I'm telling you to go straight Port Mage to Neketaka so you don't backtrack later on. You do things in order. Yeah, you get the crew, you get the ship, you get companions, and then you explore. Not the other way around. But if you want to, you can do the other way around as well. Good luck. Gray dots on a map are the main quest. Those are extremely important locations in the game. Everything with these gray dots are the main quests. Yellow dots are optionals. Okay, completely optional. But everything is worth exploring. The funny thing is how they also put yellow dots on a DLC as well. You know, like the Crucible, Hall of the Unseen, and the Harbinger's Watch. When you should do the DLCs, once you're done with everything in a campaign, and once you reach Maegran's Teeth and you got the entire map discovered, you don't finish up in this part. This is where you finish the game, in the undiscovered part. You don't do that. You do the DLCs, and then you're gonna finish the game. So first do all 3 DLCs before you finish the game. If you're capable enough, go for the mega bosses as well, and then finish the game. Pillars 2 is not a short game at all. At least if you want to do everything there is in a game, it's easily 100 hours. Resting. Should you rest on a map, or should you rest in the inn? The best resting spot in a game by far, and nothing compares, is in Dunnage with +3 to perception in the inn. That's the best resting spot in a game. There is no better resting spot, and you should always rest in Dunnage. Once you rest in Dunnage, you're gonna go to the Neketaka. You're gonna go to the Wild Mare. You'll find a whore over there. Sleep with her. You're gonna get additional buff on top of the resting buff. Then you're gonna go to Periki's Overlook. You're gonna go to the Luminous Bathhouse, and you're gonna get additional resting bonus. And then you're good to go for the mapping and so on, to go outside of Neketaka and do quests. So it's basically triple buffs before going on and fight. At the end, I highly recommend playing Pillars 1, checking my guide for Pillars 1, tips and tricks in Pillars 1, then you watch this video, combine those two, and you're pretty much good to go on the hardest difficulty available to play both games the right way. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you on the next one. Thanks for watching.